8:30, I'll call this morning's meeting to order. Looking for an approval of the agenda. We do have an agenda addition, a request for approval for out-of-state travel for our public health director.
Move to approve with addition.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Whalen, a second by Commissioner Gross. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens wishing to speak on anything? It's not posted on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move into the payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Gross, a second by Commissioner Haney. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have the minutes presented from July 17th and the 24th meetings.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Whalen, a second from Commissioner Gross. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Kathy, can we take your agenda addition, please?
Sure, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Appreciate you letting us get this agenda item as an add-on. It's out-of-state travel. This is a requirement for our evidenced home visiting program, and we had made the request for our NFP coordinator about a month ago that you may recall. And now we have a nurse that is going to be transitioning into that open position. So she's required to go to this training in Denver. And it worked out where she could go in September along with the coordinator. So we're requesting it just to get, we're requesting it today so we can get the best rate on the travel.
And it's
Move to
paid for
approve.
by it's already included in the budget?
It's included, yes.
Okay. We'll
Move to approve.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve by Commissioner Gross, a second by Commissioner Whalen. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item is a request to fill a vacancy for a GIS specialist. Good morning, Mark Sloan.
Good morning. Our GIS specialist has decided to move to a different state, so I'm asking permission to replace her.
Okay.
She's relatively new, so our costs are going to be about the same. We'll have some savings in the gap where we don't have anybody employed. So.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve the request
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
you. Our next item, number 3, is a request for approval, change order number 14, County Administrator Steve Larson.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you. As you can see, we have a number of different issues that dealt with the LEC. We're at the point where we're starting to button up. That project's getting close, but we do have a few things here. In reviewing it, I don't know if there's any specific that you'd like to talk about in particular. The largest issue was the 10th Street asphalt full removal and replacement that was done. And so, is there any other questions?
So, this is the number 1 and 2. Do you
We have,
do it as a single motion?
Excuse me.
Can we do it as a single motion?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think we've done it that
It's
way.
been through committee, yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Now second.
and a second by Commissioner Gross.
Was that reconstruction of 10th Street, was that, do you recall, I mean, I don't know if you know about it, was that part of it, or was this, I mean, I realize it's a change order, but we didn't know about that before, or?
The 10th Street asphalt? No, I think that's something that I understood came up after the fact.
But it's been through committee.
That's been through committee, correct.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Steve, I just have one question in regards to that. I heard in an interview for the sheriff's debate for the sheriff's candidates that we're behind in moving prisoners in. Do you know how long we're behind in that?
I don't think we know exactly. I do know that through our owners meeting that they're pushing the subcontractors and contractors. And so I think we're hoping to know a little bit more here in the next owners meeting. But I do think there is some concern that they may be pushing back that date.
Okay, in terms of obviously that the staff needs to train in that facility, so I assume that's pushing all of that back as well.
I think the training did get moved back a little bit. I think they're sticking with their plan. I think the concern gets to be is, from my understanding, the security system isn't going to be completed when it was supposed to be, and so that first group is going to go through,
Okay.
and then they're going to have to come back and finish.
Okay.
And I think that they're shooting for that same September date, but that it's been changed to October just in case we can't fulfill that date, so.
Okay,
So I think they're still hoping for a September date.
okay. All right, well, did we vote on, we did vote on the, okay. And then you do have the, number 4 is the update of the amendments to the original contract.
Yes, with Klein McCarthy, there were, based on some of the changes that we've asked for, both at the law enforcement center, at the jail, there were a couple of different amendments that have been requested. One, the physical separation of the security system from the jail and the main jail system and the campus cameras, and then also with that project on 9th Street, making sure, 10th Street, excuse me, there were some other design areas there that were additions.
Okay. All right. So that doesn't need,
Do you need approval on that?
do we need an approval?
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Haney
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Whalen. Further discussion?
I do, do you know how much is left in that contingency? I mean, do you have any from your
In the
committee?
200, I believe.
Yeah, we roughly have, payment-wise, we've only gone through roughly about 43% of law enforcement and 57% of the jail of the contingency, but I can get you those
It's
specifics.
about $360,000 left, I believe, so.
Okay, that's close. I mean, no, you don't have to. I was just wondering if we're still sitting okay with that.
In both projects, I think there's a considerable amount left between the two of them. I think it's around $550,000, $600,000.
Very good, okay. Sounds good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll move into our next item then.
Don't we have to vote on that?
We have to vote on it.
I apologize for that.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ben Anderson, we have the review of the U of M extension budget for 2019. Good morning.
Thanks for the time.
Yes, thanks for coming. Thanks, Steve. All right, Ben.
So the sheet shows our budget. The main changes we have, like every year, is related to our staff positions. So the first line, 6105, salaries regular, that is the account for our program staffs, the 4-H program coordinators and the horticulture educator. This amount is going up by $4,423. It's a 2.2% increase. So for 2019 through 2021, we're proposing a new agreement with the county for these positions. The current one ends this year. The next area to talk about is for the support staff position. That's Heather Weber. She's a county employee, and clerical salaries and the benefits underneath those, that totals $3,064 of an increase. So those would be the annual changes for her position. And then the other changes are some decreases. Our marketing account, we're decreasing that by $100. We have 2 travel accounts that we're decreasing by $50 each, $63.31 and $63.34. And then office supplies, $64.01, we're decreasing by $200. So in the end, it's proposing and requesting a $7,089 increase, which is about a 2.3% change.
questions from the board? Any questions? Well, you guys obviously do a lot of work in the community, so we really appreciate the presence that you do provide, and especially out front now. The master gardeners have done a phenomenal job helping Joe to make the grounds look great.
It looks really nice.
Any questions? All right.
Excuse me,
Okay.
yeah, that's one. Your new office space, is that all taken care of? I mean, you're...
It is, yep. We like it. It's a great setup for us. They did a nice job with the setting it up for us, and we've got plenty of space for everybody.
Okay, good, because I've missed the last meetings because of conflicts, but very good. Glad to hear that.
Yep. Thank you. Good to hear.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next item is the 2019 budget review for the Soil and Water Conservation District. We have Kevin Kassenberg here, and Supervisor Carol Schaaf is here as well. Good morning. We're a little early. Are you waiting on anyone?
That's why we're here.
Okay.
Just for the fact that maybe things do run a little early, which is
Great.
good. Which is good.
Okay. Kick it off, Kevin.
Thank you for inviting us. Carol Schoaf here is our treasurer for the SWCD, and she's been on for a number of years as far as on the elected committee. But for 2018, I guess primarily we had some changes in our office, and we talked about this over the years. Primarily the in-house, non-commingled with our USDA partners. So with all that came some pros. I guess it allowed us to lease some additional space which we need for our staff. We also created our own identity a little bit to separate us from them. And with that, there were some cons also. We lost our internet computing network that we were able to be on with them. We lost our IT support and also our phone services. So it forced us to go to another provider. So that all had some increases in our this operation for the 2018 year 2018. Our 2019 county budget request, we're looking or asking for a 2.2% increase. We do just under $5,000 of what we received last year. We're looking at a 2% cost of living adjustment for the county SWCD staff. And our health insurance is what really took a big jump last year. So primarily, our program stays pretty consistent over the years. Last year we had a 49% increase in our health insurance, and I know it's something that we have been fairly lucky over the previous 4 or 5 years of getting a zero increase. So they caught up with us last year.
Who do you have health insurance with again?
We have it with Lakes Country
Lakes
Milwaukee.
Country.
That is located out Fergus Falls.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's something that a few years ago, we used to be on the county's plan, and for whatever reason, there was a redetermination that we not being truly county employees, that we were no longer to be allowed to be on that. So we are allowed to be on the vision and dental, which we do take advantage of, but as far as the health insurance, that's something we had to go out and find our own provider a few years ago. So like I said, we had been very lucky with living pretty reasonable, but we thought for 4 or 5 years of getting a zero increase. Last year was a big hit for us, or actually 2018. Another opportunity that has been offered to us the last couple of years is the state has a district capacity fund that has come to us, that if the county is willing to play ball with us by allowing us an increase of up to $18,000. This happened 2 years ago, and then this past year, and it's offered again to us this year, if, including our request of just under $5,000, if you guys are willing to increase our allotment to $18,000, the state will come in again and match that at up to $18,000. So what we've done over the last 2 years is we've sat down with Dave Overbo's office, the county highway engineer's office, and then with us being the county ag inspector to do some additional spraying. We've taken those extra funds that you guys have transferred to us to allow us to get those additional state funds, and we have brought those back into the county, doing some extra spraying efforts that we put those funds towards, and also with working with Dave's office to do some engineering services for us on projects that we need some engineering assistance on, and we have paid Dave to do some of that stuff, Dave and Eric at the office there. This past year, we worked with Dave again to do some additional county spraying. We didn't ask for any additional engineering service, but we're working with Kirk Rosenberger at the landfill and did a tree planting project for the county. So those were all part of things that, those funds go out to us, but they do come back to the county through working with your other staff. So, like I said, we're hoping you would be willing to be open to reviewing that again. Like I say, it would be up to $18,000 again, something that I had never seen a couple years ago. It's continuing on. I guess we'll see where that goes. Presently, we've been working on your crestwood pollinator habitat site out there. We've cut down the district staff and working with Tony Nelson, our Pheasants Forever individual. We've cut down about 20 trees out there and trimmed them up. We just need to get out there. And we've got somebody coming on the week of 20th of August to come in and hopefully kind of bunch those up and get some of those stumps removed out of there. Then we'll proceed to get the site prepped for planting next spring. The county ag inspector program, working with our county ag inspector. His name is Gabe Foltz, and sometime I need to get him to come in here to meet you individually. I know Commissioner Mojo knows him, but probably the rest of you probably have never met Gabe. And he's been on staff for about 2 years now.
I think Gabe came and did a presentation on the buffers.
Oh, that's probably true.
Probably
too. Okay,
does,
so
yeah.
that's another one that he's been working heavily on also. With the county ag inspector program, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture had a first-time grant proposal to the counties in the state to come up with a proposal that for some funding up to, there was $300,000 available. They had requests of $800,000. We received $10,000 to do some additional some plant ID and some control efforts on wild parsnip, and that's getting to be a problem in the eastern part of the county. There were 13 townships that we prioritized, that we're working with those town board members to identify and try to control that noxious weed. The buffer law, as Commissioner Moser alluded to, that definitely is one that is we're seeing about 95% of the public waters having installed buffers already. It's the county ditches that is the next in line. Everything needs to be planted by November 1 of this year, and we'll get a better handle on that as we get closer. But we've asked the state and received $78,000 to do cost sharing with landowners for putting in these buffers. And we've got about $5,000 left, so landowners responded fairly well to that. And it's a project that the state dictated to the counties that something needs to be done, and this 50-foot buffer, there are some alternatives that can be done, but we've been working with landowners for the last couple of years trying to get this law in place. So we're doing very well, we think.
Not that you can foresee the future too much, but under a new governor, you think your buffer program's gonna change, or have you heard anything?
I don't know if this one is going to change. I mean, I know whoever this person is, I'm not sure what kind of ideas they have as far as conservation. Definitely Governor Dayton had this in his, I think one of his pet.
Yeah, this is one of his pet projects.
I don't know if they come in and actually, remove it. I guess I don't know where that's going to go, but I know we've got enforcement right now. The way the law says, our role in this is to review a third of all of the properties every third year. So over a 3-year period, we should be reviewing all these parcels, and that's ongoing. So, that's something that I guess some of those funds, as time goes on, I know the county is receiving an enforcement allotment every year. We haven't accessed any of that, but as time goes on, who knows where that goes? As let's say, we haven't had anybody really too obstinate yet as far as talking against this. We have a few that don't like it, and we understand that completely. We're trying to work with them as well as we can, and most guys are accepting that it is a law, but there's a few that, like I said, are kind of dragging their feet. But it's just persistence and trying to get them to get in compliance with the law, which is ultimately what we want to do.
And the people that haven't probably taken part are most likely absentee landowners.
Yeah.
And to contact them and have them reply has been a problem.
Okay.
Let's see what else. The County Feedlot Officer Program, that continues to be one of our projects that we work pretty closely with the Minnesota Department of MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, trying to inventory feedlots. There's 105 registered feedlots in the county, and we're working through compliance issues with those as far as pollution problems. Wetland Conservation Act, that's Lynn Foss in our office works with that, so there's always seems to be some projects going on with involving wetland impacts, working with the Buffalo River Watershed District and the Water Wastewater District on what they're calling a one watershed, one plan, basically a holistic view, rather than working with water issues county by county, it's over a whole watershed. So we're working with other counties involving where these watershed lines would encompass. Our urban conservation program, that's something that Mandy Lewis in our office has been working with a lot of the river keepers staff and the Cass County office, and working with workshops for conservation measures. And just like every day, I guess, our tree and truck program is something that we've always had, working with erosion problems along our streams and rivers. Will continue to be projects that we work with. Any questions?
I have a question. So you kind of alluded to the wild parsnip issue and the weed problem, and you and I have had conversations
Yeah.
that these weeds aren't going away no matter what. We're kind
I don't see it
of the
going
money
away.
that we're putting towards it. To what percent of the problem do you think the ditch haying is kind of contributing to this? I mean, I know that there's some staggered dates in which we can hay those ditches, but also right now the majority of the thistle is all headed out, and now we're knocking it down and bailing it.
Thistle seemed to be one that, forever, it's these new ones that we're, trying to focus on to primarily stop it before it gets to be too big of a problem. I have a drive weekly, I go out to Monaga to a Bible camp, and there's a stretch through Bedford County that there's another weed called common tansy, and that's another noxious weed that is just prolific over there. So those that haven't really gotten a foothold in Clay County yet, the thistle thing, I think mowing of ditches, I think is a good deal. I think landowners can take advantage of using those, the hay, but also if you can prevent that stuff from going to seed. A lot of these things that we're seeing with like wild parsnip, some of those that are getting mowed, the word on the street is that those will propagate by bits and pieces. If it'd be best to go out there and either maybe try to lay it down with like a sickle mower. Nobody does it anymore. Just to lay it down. But you start breaking these up and chewing them up in little pieces. Those little bits and pieces of that plant will root. So I mean, it's a problem. It's spraying is probably the best effort. Nobody's going to go out there and pull some of these areas. That'd be a good one also. But definitely, I see, like I say, some of these weeds, thistles, those type of thing. I don't see that being real. I think mowing it and haying that would be a good thing. I think just to remove some of that if it gets hayed off. But like I say, there's these other weeds that are coming in. This wild parsnip one that is just, we've got 13 townships that we've identified that there are known infestations that we're trying to hit. So like I say, we had a meeting out near Hawley, because there's a few spots in the Hawley Township that we met out there with there was about 8 different townships that were represented. Basically, number one, trying to identify the landowners and the township folks. Here's what it looks like. I mean, a lot of them don't even know what it looks like. And you show a picture to them, it doesn't really do it justice. I think being out in the country and actually seeing it is what, seeing it is believing. And definitely, what do you do to control this stuff? So, like I said, a lot of guys will go out there and try to mow it down. You may be just causing more of a problem. So those are types of things that we're trying to get a handle on how to prevent this. But with the Minnesota Department of Ag coming through with a grant opportunity, it allows us to purchase some chemical. We're doing some spraying. We purchased a few years ago a side-by-side four-wheeler with a spraying unit on there to do some of the spraying on some of these areas. And in most cases, what we're working with the funds that you give to the County Ag Inspector Program primarily go on county property. This opportunity allowed us to go help some of the townships out there to do spraying on their property too. So the unit that we've got, we're doing some spraying for the township as well as the county out there on these townships that have been targeted. So,
Commissioner.
Does it respond to 2,4-D?
not so much 2,4-D. We've got something called Perspective, and that is one that it is a kind of a, I probably would be okay on 2,4-D. I've never tried that, but definitely it's something. This Perspective is good on this common tansy I talked about. It's good on thistles. It's good on something new that's called spotted knapweed.
Yeah, I know what that is.
So there's, like I said, there's a few things that when we took over the program, I'd never even heard of some of those things, but definitely they're moving into the county. And I think some of it is, being, I shouldn't point the finger, but I see some of it, I think, coming on the roads, just on gravel, gets dispersed that way a little bit. And that, certifying weed-free gravel pits, and that's an issue we've talked in our office a few different times. How do you handle some of that stuff? Because there's a lot of other counties that are requesting for gravel coming into their county, if it's coming outside of the county, to be certified weed-free. I don't know how you could possibly do weed seed free, I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah.
But to, to go out there and consider weed free, we've worked with a couple of the gravel pit companies and gone out and just basically identified where they're gonna be taking gravel from, that there are no noxious weeds present at that time. And basically that's what our letter that we're saying is nothing is present as of, August 7th or 8th or whatever, so. But, yeah, I see that one as being a huge issue, because North Dakota has a lot of gravel coming from Clay County that's going into Cass County. North Dakota has a whole different set of noxious weeds, so they are, asking us to, it's weed free as far as Minnesota's concerned. But going over across North Dakota lines, they've got a whole different set of different weeds that they're concerned with. So, yeah, that one is a huge issue. I can see that is for future decisions to be made, but.
I would be happy if you'd like to. I know that we have utilized those state funds, so if you want to schedule a meeting with Steve or I or whoever was a part of that dialogue before,
Sure.
just to see if it would be possible to collaborate with another. I mean, I know it was really helpful for the landfill to.
Yeah, we did some spraying for them also, some additional spraying on some of the landfill issues, because they've had some leafy spurge problems out there. And we've gone a couple times this year, and so some of those funds have been used not only for their tree planting program the trees, the planting, and then putting this fabric down to keep a weed-free barrier that was put on this spray, but also some additional spraying on areas out there that they've got leafy spurge control. So yeah, I'd say if that's a possibility to work with you folks, we definitely would, the funds that we're asking, the request that we're asking for increase, but over and above that up to $18,000, and we would be happy to work with another county entity again to. Those funds go up, but they come right back into the county to do different.
What is the
projects.
deadline that you need for the state?
Right now I don't have a deadline, other than it's another one that last fall.
Last year, did we just do it with the regular cycle?
Last year we met, I think it was in October, and kind of came up with a plan as far as, I know it was in the county board minutes in October, I think it was the 3rd, but I think we put together a proposal working with Kirk and Dave to help you get it.
Well, if you want to work with Steve and try to figure something out to meet in September to just see if there's any way we could collaborate with different departments, and then, we obviously would bring it back to this board for discussion, but I'd be happy to.
Thank you. It seems to be a good fit. It's a good little influx into our, the state coming in with an additional $18,000. That's just unheard of, but this is the 3rd year they're offering it. So if we can partner with the district, with the county departments, we would love to do that.
Is that part of your budget here yet, that 18,000?
No.
That's not in there?
No, like I said, it's not, it sounds like it's gonna be, but not every county plays ball with their SWCDs, so the potential to go up to $18,000, that is something that is, I know a few counties that their county commissioners have not partnered with them, so funds go back into, that's why when I say up to $18,000, right now, they are telling us that we would probably be in line for $14,400, but if other counties don't play ball, that the potential is to go up to $18,000, and that's what happened last year. We were asking for $14,000, but the potential up to $18,000. Other counties that did not participate, those funds went back into the hopper, and those they came up and we ended up with our $18,000. So it's kind of the same game that they're offering again this year. But yeah, those haven't been figured into there at all.
Okay, very good. I didn't see it. I was wondering whether it was part of one of the other items in there, because I didn't see the 18,000 in here.
And Steve met with me just before, just a few minutes there, we need to sit down, and I'd love to do that with Steve. I mentioned to our board here some time ago, we want to invite Steve to one of our upcoming board meetings, just to meet our staff and our board members, and some of the things that we do in our office. I know it's things that maybe he isn't aware of, and we'd like to bring him up to speed, so.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That might be one of the things that you said about the new governor coming in, may not be available too.
Yeah.
Right, that's another
Yeah,
thing.
that's,
Yet to be seen, yeah.
Okay.
And give him that list of all those names, you got initials, acronyms.
You can probably rattle them off by now, Frank.
I know the first year I was on with them, and they lost me. They kept talking Bowser and all kinds of things, and I didn't know what they were talking about.
Sean, now we're talking about.
Well, thank you for your presence in the community. I really appreciate that our landowners have a local rep that they can go to kind of solve some of these land use issues. So thank you to you and the rest of the supervisors for the work that you do.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Have a good day.
I see.
All right, our item number 7 is the 2019 budget review for building maintenance, family service center. We have Joe Olson, our maintenance supervisor, and Georgia Beaudry, building manager. Hi, guys. I know we thanked you a couple weeks ago at our ribbon cutting, but you two really were instrumental in the expansion of both of those facilities and kind of coordinating how that would all work. And a simple thank you can hardly go far enough for all the work that you did, but thank you.
I think Joe's gonna kick it off here.
Okay.
Am I? Okay.
Sure.
Yes. Can do that. Well, what we did is we met yesterday, George and I with Steve and Lori. So, and I guess to start off, that first page there with the 01 numbers there, that's the, in the past, that's been, we've had the courthouse and the law enforcement center and the jail all kind of put together into one operating budget for maintenance. And as we have these new buildings open up, it's, I believe, our goal to accurately capture the operating costs within each budget of each building. So we're making a few shifts here and there. So what you see here now is just the courthouse and the motor vehicle kind of pooled together. So the other costs will shift on to Julie and Steve and the LEC jail, and we're going to be working with them on that transition. So I guess for here, I'll just kind of, I won't go line to line, but if you have questions, you can jump in here. As far as our revenue, the only thing we have coming in is now is the rent for the motor vehicle up there, and there was some rent from Moorhead and everything, but as I said, that shifts on over to the new LEC building and stuff. So other than that, budgets are down just slightly. I think we had a couple of retirements, so we're kind of looking good there. The only thing real increase I see in this was the utilities, and that was, I think, due to we were hooked up to the jail over there and, you know, running heaters and everything throughout the winter. We had a significant jump there, but I feel as we start firing up the new boilers and everything, that'll settle down within a year. So I anticipate tracking that and seeing how that all settles down anyway. So
Just really quickly, and I don't know if we know the answer to this now, as the investment that we made to those solar panels, I think the thought was that the income that would eventually start coming through would obviously be coming to us. Is that going into the general?
It would go into the general fund, but we haven't seen anything yet.
Well, obviously it won't happen for a while, but it's not going into your specific budget for utility offset.
Not that I know of so far. I guess that
It
would
would
be.
just go into the general fund under the unallocated.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
I think that's going to take about 10 years.
Well, right, but it
Yep.
just, I
Yep.
couldn't recall that we were.
Yeah, and as far as even like the boilers, you know, we've made a pretty big investment in them too. So I want to see how that drops everything, and doesn't come in the form of a rebate, but
Right.
definitely we should see some dropping.
savings.
Yeah, because though they control the juvenile center, family service center, and the courthouse, or in the new jail and the power plant, so we should see some savings there, and so with that, but other than that, really there's not a whole lot of changes. Motor vehicle is, I think we're on year 5 or 6 of that renovation, so there's not a lot of expenses accruing out there either, but I do know that with these new buildings, as we, you know, we got a 1-year warranty, so on a lot of this stuff, so, you know, we have a year to kind of see what we're dealing with as we settle in, so that's my goal, to see, you know, what a true operating costs of those are too, maintenance-wise. So other than that, that's really what I have here. It's pretty simple. If you have any questions?
Are the boilers all in? Are they?
No, they're not quite in yet. I think they're 2 or 3 weeks out still. They've been, I don't want to say they've run into problems, but it's been a pretty big undertaking. So a lot of things have to kind of come together between hooking up to the new jail, new facility systems, tying in, and then our old, and then I think we're a couple, 2 to 3 weeks out still before we're truly online, but once we do that, the old one comes offline, and we should be efficient, hopefully, so. And I'll watch those bills and see how that happens, so.
Anything else? Georgia?
I think the next page, the 65038, that is the mailroom over at the Family Service Center. We're seeing things tracking pretty much as they are. The very first line is our postage and copies. We have seen a slight decrease in that just because of the way things have shifted. We're trying to go paperless. We don't make nearly the copies that we used to, but also our equipment needs have changed too, so we have to replace some of our larger equipment to make those copies. The next line is our social service revenue, the 5410. The mailroom staff, they job share with the social service office. So 4 hours out of the day, their salaries are paid for from revenue from social services, which works out well for both of us. There isn't a full-time need in the mailroom, but yet they don't need to have a full-time need in social services either, so that's good. Cross-training there. The 65038, again, is strictly the mailroom. The postage amount is the $150,000. We might see that go up a little bit due to election, mailing out the absentee ballots, but again, that's an actual cost. We don't have much choice as far as reducing it.
I have a question with that. Did you use the full 150 when you had to do the absentees in the prior election?
We did, yes, yes. And this year, we might be a little bit over. We're trying to make it through the end of the year with, we just added an additional 75,000, but again, that'll depend on the election and how much we use. We do charge for any of the mail that we run, a 10% charge fee for the other departments that use it, so we do get a little bit of revenue, but that goes towards the salary of the people in the mailroom.
Now, you're talking about that, you're just talking about absentee ballots, but I see there's more townships going to mail-in ballots. Does that affect your postage then, or?
We put the postage on, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Laura, we put the postage on the envelope that they mail out, and then it will get returned back to us. So yes, it does.
So that would be more postage this year, because I see
There's
that.
more postage, but it's in the election budget. So they pay for it out of here, but then they charge back.
Oh, okay.
So it gets paid
Yeah,
for.
that whole 150 is charged out, and very little of that is the mailroom, but like social services budget will be charged a portion of that 150, and then we bill them monthly, and then they pay us back. So it's pretty much a wash at the end.
Okay.
65039, that's my portion of the budget with minimal for some training in there, small office equipment and items like that. The next page on the accounting and auditing, that's put in by the auditor's office. That's a standard fee that we pay each year, the 65045 for internal accounting. And then on, it says Family Service Center Building and Grounds Maintenance. That covers the actual building, the Family Service Center budget building. The 651115400, that's our paper that we distribute, and again, we charge out as we deliver that. Maintenance charges, so if Joel's staff is asked to put together a desk, we charge an hourly rate to a tenant, and then that charge and revenue is in that one. And then the miscellaneous revenue, that's reimbursement we receive from the juvenile center for maintenance and different services maintenance provides, along with some scrap material. And then we didn't have a whole lot of change. Some of it we will see a slight decrease in the salary because again, that's Joe's staff and the custodial staff under the maintenance, the salaries there. We'll see a little bit of a decrease in the electrical and gas, and I think Joel referenced that, why we'll see some of that decrease. I think we were a little high on that with hopes that it would go down, but I suppose if it's cold winter, it could be back up there. Otherwise, we don't really have any changes in it. We do on line 6302, equipment repair and maintenance. We did put an additional 10,000 in there. Joel maybe wants to speak to that for the equipment. We're trying to knock out some fixtures. If we don't need it, we're gonna try and knock away at, is it valves or?
Yeah, there's some project piping concerns and stuff that we have identified, and rather than, and then we feel we can take on a section every year rather than one large project, and so we, I think, figured that if we can take care of it within that line budget every year and kind of have a plan to hit that mark every year, it'd be a lot better, I feel.
And otherwise, the lines are pretty much status quo from the previous years. It doesn't look like we've spent, you know, right now, our budget, we're only at about 32%, or excuse me, about 45%, but we do have several projects, big projects that are forthcoming that we just haven't completed yet.
Okay.
We also have each year about 50,000 that would be in that building replace our equipment line with carpet and paint that we're not really falling behind, but we don't want to get too far behind either, that we'd like to keep up with that each year, so we're not doing a huge chunk and then have to come up with 200,000, so.
Questions?
The building is full, we're at 100% occupancy. We are not proposing a rental increase for 2019, but we will review it again for 2020.
Okay. Anything else? Well, thanks, guys. Highway Department items, Dave Overbo, our highway engineer. We have a few different things. The first one that you have is the approval of the right-of-way documents with the city of Moorhead.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I brought Tom Trowbridge, Assistant City Engineer, with me in case there's any questions. It's a project that we worked on quite a while ago, a number of years ago. I think it was actually brought at a kind of a concept level to the board back in 2013. The documents were put together as part of their pretty comprehensive flood protection project that the city's been working on. There was some property that the city had and a few lots that the county had, and did everybody get enough information so they can kind of see where we're talking about? Essentially, the county had a paved parking lot.
We don't have a map. I mean, we have
The
the memo.
Okay. It would be the paved parking lot that the county had, and then that gravel parking lot.
Up north here?
It would actually just straight west,
Okay.
just on the other side of the law enforcement center.
Okay.
Yeah,
By the dike.
Yeah, historically, there'd been a flood mitigation buyout back in after the 97 flood, I think.
Exactly, yep.
And the county had a gravel parking lot on the floodable part of that. And then when we came through to build the levee, and I'm trying to remember, it might be that we might have bought the lot and then transferred it to the county for you guys to use as parking back then.
Could very well be.
And in any case, we bought out some more lots to the north of that, and when we wanted to build the levee project, we basically swapped property and paved a parking lot. So you had a kind of a triangular shaped parking lot when we were done, and the intent was to make everything proper, do the official land swap after the project was built. It would be easier to do that afterwards when we knew, I mean, because sometimes in construction you might have to change, or in the final design you change a little bit of a location of the levee or something. And so we wanted to wait until we built the project, and then we just kind of, everybody's busy and we kind of lost track of the paperwork, and now we realize we really need to finalize that now. And so, yeah, the area that we paved as a parking lot and the law enforcement center expansion came along, and now that's where your stormwater pond is. So it's still important to make the land transfer, but it's just a little different use of the property than we'd initially planned. But we're keeping the land that the levee is on, and then we would deed back the parcels on the riverside that we don't need for the levee, and then we're keeping an easement over the levee setback from the levee. And so that's what that parcel D is.
Yeah, the way the documents are, we've got a quitclaim deed for the parcels that the county's deeding over to the city, which would be on that map there. I think it's parcel A, it's lots 9, 10, 11, and 12, and then lots 1, 2, and 3. So that's the paved lot that the county did back in about 2004, and then the gravel lot, and then the city acquired some buyout property, which is labeled parcel C on that map, and I believe that is lots 1 through 9 and 10, I believe. So basically, they are quitclaim deeding us their parcels. There is also an easement on the portion that they're giving us, which is just for the clear zone only of the dike or the levee. The levee is actually not on parcel C. And then there's the fourth part of this is a water line irrigation easement, just so that we can get water out of the river. It was underneath the parcel A on that map there. So like I said, there's quite a bit of paperwork that goes along with this. There's 2 quit claim deeds, and then there's a permanent easement for the clear zone of the levee, and then there's a water line irrigation easement. Any questions?
I had Colleen go make a copy of that quick, so.
Sure.
Have our attorneys gone over all this? I mean, your attorney and,
Yeah, I sent it to Steve, and like I said, there's a lot to it. He had some questions on the quitclaim deed that the city is deeding over to the county, where we had the second paved parking lot that's now the water retention pond there. It's on the north side. The permanent easement is in place, so that it's the clear zone portion of the levee. In order to actually have enough room to build that parking lot, you know, like I said, now it's a water detention pond, but what we did is we maximized the space, but in order to maximize the space, we had to have a little bit of a clear zone that was within the parking lot itself, so. Other than that, I don't think Steve had a lot of questions. I think the other question he had was whether anything changed as far as language from, you know, these were done back in 2014. There was different chairmen and things at the time, so I believe that was the only thing that changed was making it current for county staff.
So this went to highway tracking in 2014,
Right.
and it was reviewed.
It even went to the county board, I think.
Yes, yeah. In 2013, it did go to the board in
2013,
concept. And then about 8 months later, we got the documents, and about 3 months later, went to highway committee. And Brian and I, at the time, and according to my notes, we were going to work with Jenny on what the next steps were gonna be, whether it needed to go to board to get approval or not. And being that it's been so many years, we decided, or Jenny recommended that we bring it back to the board for approval, since we need signatures on 2 quitclaim deeds, a permanent easement form, and a water line irrigation form.
Okay, Steve, do you have anything to add?
No, I will tell you, I don't have any opinion on whether this is a deal the county and the city want to make with each other. I don't know the history. As far as the descriptions go, we did not draft the deeds. They're quitclaim deeds, so I guess I'd say in that sense the risk of an error in the description kind of falls on whoever's receiving it. If you'd like me to review the descriptions, I certainly can. I believe they were drafted by the city or the city attorney.
Yeah, the boundary information was prepared by Houston Engineering, and it was reviewed by the city attorney's office.
My question is, this has kind of been on the back burner for a few years. I would be maybe more comfortable in just having staff review it for the next week, just to make sure that we're clear, but, you know, are you on some sort of timeline?
I think it's just more we'd like to get it closed out. And
Yeah,
make sure
I
it's taken
completely
care of.
understand.
So
Just because
yeah.
there's been so much time and the board has changed a little bit, I would personally would feel more comfortable if we just made sure we had it reviewed. before
I agree. I think it should be reviewed by our attorneys to make sure that this is all. I realize your attorneys have done it, I
Yeah.
guess, you know, and,
You don't want to trust us?
you may word it different. No, good one. No, I do
Yeah,
trust you.
no,
It's just that I
that's
think
perfectly
I think it's proper that we check it out.
Sure.
Is that fine?
Yep.
Just to put it back on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
You know, I don't think we need a whole another presentation, but just because we just got the maps. And
Sure.
and Steve can give us a recommendation. Okay?
Okay, everybody that worked on it is no longer here. Jenny's not here, Brian's not here.
Well, yeah, and even in 13, you know, Commissioner Haney and I weren't on the board then as well, so.
Exactly.
No hurt and just.
Yeah, but he was on the council that approved.
Even more reason to have. So just, we'll put it on for next week.
Sounds like fun.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Tom, for
Thanks,
that.
All right.
Agenda item number 2, or the number 2 that you have is a funding resolution and agreement for CASA 10.
Thanks, Tom.
These are the grant agreements that we get from MnDOT with regard to spending whether it be grant money or I believe 2 of them are local improvement grants. So I'll have Eric kind of just run through the paperwork on that.
So, yeah, the first item, agenda item 2, is for a grant that Dave and I applied for back last fall. And we did get awarded, and basically the state looks at the bid prices that actually came in and determined the final grant amount to be $450,000. And that's for the mill and overlay on Cassaw 10 there by Denver, which we actually just completed construction. And the agreement is just kind of a process the state requires to get the grant funds. And the main thing in the agreement is saying any dollar amount above that $450,000 the county would be responsible for. So that's kind of the main thing, the reason for the agreement. So I guess Dave and I reviewed it. It's very similar to the bridge bonding agreements we do all the time. And I guess we would recommend approval of the grant agreement and resolution for the grant agreement number 1030801. So it's,
Okay.
do you have any questions on that one?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Gross and a second by Commissioner Haney. I've had more comments from people that are excited about this project.
It turned out really good.
I mean, people are really happy that we're getting this done. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Your item number 3 is the adopt funding resolution and agreement for the Saban Elric project.
Yep, so this is a very similar, well, it's identical agreement, but this is for the project that Saban applied for. It's on our County Road 67 there. It's about 1,000 feet. And we did approve an MOU with Saban a couple months back. And basically, our involvement in the project is we will cash flow the project, and then we will request the reimbursement bond funds from the state. And this agreement, the final grant amount was determined to be $217,523.50. And Northern Improvement is the contractor on that project, and they plan to, I think we're doing the pre-con this afternoon in Saban,
Okay.
so we'll know more on the schedule. Construction should go quick, but we would request that we approve the grant agreement and resolution for this project, and the agreement number is 1031469.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner
Second.
Whalen, a second from Commissioner Haney. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 4 is your Brown SRF pavement preservation plan.
All right, we have brought some, a couple of consultants with us that are helping us with this project. I'll grab a couple of chairs and then we can kind of go into some detail. Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you guys again.
Yes, likewise.
So we've got Amy and Molly with us. Amy works with Brown Intertech and Molly works with SRF. This is the pavement management project that we brought, for approval from the board on. And the biggest function of this is taking our existing data that we get from MnDOT and then putting it together into a report form so that we can roll out to the commission and we can use it for our internal staff so we can make sure we're going down the right road with our projects. There's many different ways to preserve your pavements.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's more efficient ways, and that's kind of what we're looking at doing. Every county only has so many dollars to keep your system in the best shape we can, and we're trying to utilize this project to continue that and, spend our dollars in the right area, I guess, is maybe some of the biggest things. And I think so far the plan is coming together really good. There's a lot of good information that we were able to put together, and maybe I'll just kind of let Amy, Molly start through it. So what we'd like to today is just kind of roll out where we're at with the project. There will be a final report that will come through later once we finalize everything, but we're to a point now where we can kind of at least roll out the main part of how we, when we get our money, how it kind of breaks down into all the different parts of our decision-making process, and we can show some trends on how things have been trending as far as condition ratings on our roadways. So,
Thank you. All right, you guys have handouts though too, right? So I'll just get going then. So I'm Molly Stewart with SRF Consulting. So as Dave mentioned, we're working on this pavement preservation plan for the county right now. And we're just going to go through kind of where the process of the study is at right now and kind of what we've been doing. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to jump in. I think if that makes sense, and ask away. So, okay. All right. So preserving and maintaining the county's roadway system is pretty complex. As most know, transportation systems have become very expensive to maintain. There's rising costs of materials and stagnant or declining funding sources to cover everything. So it's now a matter of how do you balance, the needs with what you have to use for that. So as part of this study, we went through and looked at what the existing tools that the county is currently using to track their pavement condition and pavement management, which is a program called ICON. And we also analyzed the existing road conditions plus some historic data to kind of determine what the existing state of the system is, and then did a comparison of what the available revenue that the county currently has with what that looks like for their system now, and then what we project in the future as well. And then, as part of this plan, we'll develop a customized solution for the current and future needs of the county, and then promote awareness to the board and the public as needed, because that is a pretty big step when it comes to pavement management. You have to kind of make everybody aware of why you're doing things and why you're spending money the way you are. So, all right, so just want to go into a little bit of pavement preservation 101. So, roadways have a finite life. It's kind of dictated by what type of traffic and wear and tear the roadway experiences. So if it's got heavier truck traffic or heavier vehicle traffic, it might wear faster than a road that's traveled less. Or if there's weather conditions or poor soils that are a factor, there's always those things to consider as well. So eventually, you can continue to maintain these roadways, but you only get so far, and eventually you're going to have to reconstruct these roadways. So priorities of pavement preservation is we really want to focus on preventing the fair condition roadways from falling into the poor condition category, because that's when the maintenance activities tend to be a lot more costly, whereas if you've got a roadway in a fair condition or a good condition, you can do a seal coat or a crack seal or a mill and overlay, which is a little bit lower cost solution, rather than kind of pavement in poor condition where you're going to have to reconstruct it and it can be a lot more costly. So the main, it's really important to know that, because a lot of times you'll see people, you'll be doing work on roadways that maybe look good and are still in fairly good shape, but you're really just trying to extend the life of that roadway at a much lower unit cost, rather than trying to, always fixing the poor condition pavements, which is always going to be a more costly solution. So, like I said, you want to prioritize, preservation strategies like mill and overlays and seal coats over the more expensive reconstructs, and then really trying to dial in what the appropriate life cycle time frame for each of the roadways are. And again, as I said, there's different traffic conditions and weather and soil conditions on each roadway. So, each roadway, depending on where it is, it's got a unique life cycle. And so as part of this pavement management software that the county uses, you're able to kind of dial in for each roadway segment in the county what the appropriate life cycle is for it, and how to use the preservation strategies most effectively for that roadway. So this graphic just shows a little bit of a typical pavement. If you were to do no preservation to it, you reconstruct. At the left side is the pavement condition, and the right side or on the bottom is the pavement age. So at brand new roadway, you're at 100, scale of 100, which is the pavement quality index, which we do it on a scale of 0 to 100, and it kind of just gives an overall condition, and I'll go into a little bit more of that in a little bit. So
brand new road is at excellent, and then as it just sits there and wears and tears, and based on traffic and weather and all that, those activities, it will slowly start declining and get down to the failed area where then you're reconstructing the roadway. But this next graphic will show how if you spend a little bit of preservation money as this pavement is wearing, so in the blue area, if you as the pavement's wearing, maybe a couple of years in, you're doing a seal coat and you bump the quality up a little bit, and then the pavement starts wearing again, and then you're doing, maybe a mill and overlay, and this, when it gets down to this pink area, which is the major repair, and then it bumps it back up to 100 again, and then again, you repeat that cycle, and so that kind of is showing you how if you did nothing, you'd get a life cycle, a pavement age of about 20 years, but if you did some of these preservation activities, you're going to be able to extend the life of maybe 60 years for the pavement, so.
No, I think a good way to think of it is just like maintaining your vehicles. I mean, you have to do the low cost, oil changes, whatever, to extend the life.
All right, so just in summary, pavement preservation is really about being having a very proactive approach to pavement management, and your big emphasis on, maintaining your past investments, all the roadways, and extending the life as long as you can. So really trying to maximize how the county is spending their dollar, and making sure you're selecting the appropriate strategy for the roadway and at the right time. And then, being really effective with when you're performing these strategies, so to minimize lengthy road closures and delays, and reduce costs, because you're spending money to preserve the roadway rather than always reconstructing at the end of the life. So. All right, so just getting into a little bit of some of the existing tools that the county is currently utilizing. So as I mentioned, they use ICON pavement management software, which takes into account a number of different factors. So one thing is they MnDOT collects pavement quality data on a cycle, and then that data is then imported into this pavement management software, along with construction project history, and uses GIS and tracks all the roadway segments in the county. So all that data can then be used to project out future scenarios and kind of assess what the current system, the state of the system is. And the county also really understands the preservation activities and why they're necessary, and how, to maintain a system. So the importance of chip sealing and mill and overlay as part of preservation activities, rather than just focusing on reconstructions.
So does the state went out and tested these roads, or we tested the roads?
The County Engineers Association has contract with MnDOT to do that for the county. So you're correct, the state does that for all counties. All 87 counties get data. It used to be every 4 years, now it's going to be every 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we realize that this data changes. It's very, very important, but it's costly. But we have, as an association and counties, have all banded together to increase that data by every 2 years now. So
that's ended as our system.
Yep, the county has a contract with ICON, so that costs us money, but we then utilize that data in kind of like what Molly was saying. It analyzes it, and it gives projections, and it's a way, the data alone is I wouldn't say useless, but it's really raw.
Yeah, I mean, it's a snapshot in time of what the condition of your pavements are.
So you have to further utilize that data with some sort of a pavement management software, and I think ICON is one of the more popular ones that a lot of counties utilize, and that's one that we use.
So just going through kind of some of the existing system characteristics that the county has. So they have about 286 miles of asphalt roadway and 193 vehicle bridges, so that can either be a culvert or a bridge, but they're on the county system. And then about 47 railroad crossings on the county system. So all of these assets are coming out of the county's budget every year of how to maintain and these. And the ICON software that I mentioned earlier is just about the pavement management. So these other systems, we just looked at as a whole, and I'll get into that in a second, allocating budget for each of those items is for maintenance, and then the pavement is the phone category, so. So as I mentioned, there's 286 miles of roadways on the county system. The county's roadways are broken down by functional class. This map and the table or pie chart highlight the breakdown of the functional class from principal arterial down to a minor, major and minor collector and local roadway. So just to give a little bit of background on functional class, it's really important to establish a functional class system for your roadways. It helps define the function and the role of the roadway so that you can, move and establish a good network that collects and distributes traffic appropriately. So the graphic on the right shows kind of how the higher the access is on the roadway, or the more accessible it is, the typically the lower mobility of the roadway. So city local roads and stuff tend to have a lot of access points on them, meaning it's a little bit maybe slower to move through them versus principal arterial, which is like a freeway or expressway, is meant for high mobility and moving traffic efficiently and quickly, and so there tends to be a lot less access points on it. All right, so I'm gonna kick it over to Amy now to talk a little bit about the pavement.
Yeah, so this is a pie chart that came out of the data that's in the pavement management system in ICON. So you can kind of see the breakdown of the pavement age for the Clay County system. So roughly 48% of the system has an age of 26 plus years. What we mean by age is the last time the roadway had a major resurfacing project, so the last time it was reconstructed or mill and overlaid. So that kind of gives you a sense of how old the system is, and if you think back to that chart that Molly had with the deterioration, that you can kind of see where you're at. Roughly half of the roads are probably down in that lower maroonish band where they've got, typically your older pavements are going to have obviously more cracking on them, and so the pavement condition is usually going to be lower.
The other thing maybe I just want to add with this picture here is as you get into that pink area too with your degradation, when you do make the fix, you don't always go back up to, like the longer you wait, you don't really get back to 100 either. Is that kind of correct? So,
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when if you're in that middle sort of pink band, and let's say we do a mill and overlay on a road, from a surface standpoint, yes, it's not going to have any cracking initially, so it will have a score back to 100. However, there's still underlying cracks that are there, and those are going to reflect back through the pavement, and then that pavement condition is going to drop off much more rapidly. So you're going to have a steeper deterioration of the roadway. And then the other point I should make here too is it is important to time those maintenance treatments properly, because if you do like a mill and overlay on a road that's too far deteriorated, you're not going to get the life out of it that you typically should. So if you do a mill and overlay on a road that, let's say is a 20, when you're supposed to do mill and overlays between maybe a 40 and 60, you're probably only going to get 5 years out of it as opposed to 10. So that's why we want to, try and catch those treatments in a timely manner and not delay them.
Do we work this all in our 5-year plan? Is that all part of our?
But right now, a lot of this stuff is how Eric and I are viewing the system, So this is going to take a little more of a scientific approach at it, but yes, this is 100% going to help us with our 5-year plan. Yeah. And then we will bring this to the highway committee and show you as well, and hopefully between our entire highway committee, we will come to a consensus on making the right decision. So that's kind of our plan.
Yeah, it's a great tool for developing your plan, but it's just a tool. It can't, it's just a software program, so it can't replace the engineering judgment. Like, maybe you have a road that needs to be increased capacity-wise because it's getting more traffic, so you need to rehab it sooner than maybe what the pavement condition shows. Or maybe there's drainage issues or other things like that force you to put it on your CIP list when maybe, the condition doesn't necessarily dictate that. Okay, so this is just various pie charts of the historical PQI, Pavement Quality Index data that the county's getting from the state. PQI is sort of a composite score of the cracking that's on the pavement surface and then the ride quality. So how smooth does it feel to the traveling public? So you can see the first time the county was evaluated was in 2005. The average score for the entire network was a 69. There were very few pavements in poor condition, roughly 20% in that excellent range. And then you can kind of see how things have slowly deteriorated over time. So in 2008, it was at a 66, and then in 2013, the network average was a 65. And kind of what's happening, the ones to really focus on are the yellow, which are those fair condition pavements. Those are the ones that are kind of in that mid-pink band on that other chart we were just looking at, where we gotta, get those fixed now because they're gonna start deteriorating really rapidly, and then the costs become much more expensive. So the key is really to try and catch those fair condition roadways. And then the county does have, Dave said they were changing the cycle, so there is a 2017 data set that's being analyzed right now. And then the county will actually get reviewed again, I assume in 2019, yeah. Okay, so then what we did was we used the ICON pavement management program to use that historical data and project where conditions are today based on what history has shown. So you can see here that the average PQI today, we're projecting to be a 58, and we've got, bless you, we've got quite a bit more pavements in that fair, kind of most critical category. And we might have shown this at our last presentation, but I'd like to include some photos just to kind of give folks a sense of what do these different PQIs mean or what do they look like, so you can kind of see some different scores represented there. The 80s just kind of starting to get some transverse cracking across the road, which has been sealed. The 45, we've got quite a bit more distress. Those distresses are open, which means water's getting in there. That's not good for the pavement. And then you can see what the 25
I think that's my
looks
road.
like.
I was thinking the same
I
thing.
think that's my road.
And obviously, those are the ones that are going to be a lot more uncomfortable when the public drives on them, so those are probably the ones you're going to get the calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so as part of our plan, we developed a sketch tool to kind of analyze and look at the data that the county has to work with. So first was, for ICON, we can use that to project out some future revenue scenarios, but we need to establish, what the revenue inputs are to begin with. So the county has various revenue streams that they can use for pavement management and asset management, including their bridges and their railroad crossings. It comes from local, state, and federal revenue sources. And so what we did was reviewed past historic revenue streams and kind of applied some inflation factors to establish a rule, like a baseline amount of revenue that we could then use and project it forward. So we used a 20-year projection timeline, so we looked at the years 2018 through 2037. And then, like I mentioned, we applied inflation factors to the revenue streams of 2% each year to the revenue, and then a 3% for the maintenance strategies. So this is what we used for, we'll discuss a little bit of the budget projection scenarios in a second. So just as the breakdown, to establish kind of this pie chart here, which is, the full annual budget the county has is about $5 million, and we broke it down by what would be needed for bridge reconstructs, culvert reconstruction, railroad crossing replacements, and pavement management. So utilizing the sketch tool and kind of some of these unit costs I have at the bottom here, we took some typical reconstruction costs for bridges and culverts and railroad crossings and kind of accounted for those and how many there are in the system to skim off some of this budget here, and then the rest is utilized for pavement management. And then I should note also that for bridge and culvert reconstructions, the county gets about 50% of the funding to replace those and reconstruct as state bonding funds.
On railroad crossings, Do we pay for those, does the railroad get involved in that?
It kind of depends on, I mean, there is some crossings that they are responsible for, or they choose to replace, but a lot of times it's kind of a cooperation deal where if the county makes a request to replace them, then the county pays a pretty good chunk of it. So we replaced one in Glendon probably 15 years ago, the one that we're going to extend now in Park. That was one of our we replaced. We've done several along Highway 52 down towards Barnesville. That is with Otter Tail Valley, but we've done several of those as well. Haven't done a lot of real big expensive ones, but even the smaller ones are, somewhere between $20,000 and $80,000.
That concrete crossing material that you see out there now, that usually costs about $1,200 a linear foot. And that's installed with railroads, contractors. It's expensive. But hopefully that concrete stuff is gonna last a lot longer than, the old timber crossings.
And though it's expensive, as you can see from this pie chart, 90% of the county's operating budget for their system management is going towards that pavement preservation. So it's really the largest asset. The bridges and the railroad crossings and the culverts are pretty minor compared to the pavement.
Okay, so we use the ICON payment management program to run some budget scenarios to kind of see what's going to happen to the system based on the current level of funding. So some of the inputs that we put into the program, the county does have a CIP plan for 2018 to 2022, so we incorporated that. We've got our base year revenue of about $4.5 million. We're projecting out 20 years, and then again we applied the inflation factors to both the revenue source and the cost that it does to perform the different maintenance activities. So you can see there what each different strategy costs. So when the county does a seal coat project, those are those little bump ups we get on the high end of the pavements. That's about 30,000 a mile, and then you can kind of see how things increase. When we get to reconstruct, we're talking about 600,000 a year. So that's why we want to try and perform a lot of those low-cost treatments as opposed to letting things deteriorate into that recon range. And then this is just sort of the preservation schedule, so all the different maintenance activities laid out on a timeline. So at year 0, we're constructing the pavement. Right around year 5, we're going to seal coat. We'll do a second seal coat around year 8 or so. And then typically at about an age of 20 is when we have to do that first mill and overlay activity, and then things kind of repeat through. So this is how, so when ICON can be used to develop your CIP plan. Like I was saying, it is just a software program, so it doesn't have the engineering intelligence, but it is going to prioritize things based on functional class. So your principal arterials, minor arterials, those ones are going to get, the funding first before some of those local roadways. It looks at pavement conditions, so based on that PQI score, what sort of repair should be performed. It factors in the age, when was the last time the roadway got some sort of treatment done to it. And then what it does is, so we have a pot of money of $1.5 million. So it spends that on viable projects. Well, then there's still a list of projects that need to be done but are not being funded. So those go on to what's called a backlog list. So then obviously in the real world, there's other, you can see in red there, the other factors that have to go into what's going to go on your CIP plan, which might be, maybe something needs to be rehabbed because of safety or improved drainage. Maybe it's deteriorating a lot more rapidly than you had anticipated. Okay, so the first scenario that we ran was sort of what the county had been doing, which was not spending any money on preventive maintenance, no money on seal coating or thin overlays. And then you can kind of see the breakdown of how it was being allocated between major repairs, which are like and overlays, and then major rehab, which is your resurfacing projects. So with that funding approach, this table here shows kind of the next 20 years. So again, as a starting point, we're taking that condition data from MnDOT. And in 2018, all the way through 2037, you can see what happens to the PQI. So we started at 59 and it actually ends at a 68, so it does improve somewhat. But at the same time, there's that maintenance backlog, which is that third column there, and this is in millions of dollars. So this is the sum of projects that need to be done but are not getting funded. So looking 20 years out, we're at about $71 million worth of work that, that would still be hanging out there. Okay, so then the second scenario we ran was to look at what if we put some money into that preventive category, the low-cost treatments. So this one, we put roughly 30% of the $4.5 million to preventive, about 35% to major repair, and then about the same to major rehab. So that one, we actually end up with much better results. We are projected to be at a PQI of 75, and the backlog goes down. It's right around 60 million with that one.
So no additional funding is put into this, and it's just reallocating the money we have in a different way. So as you can see, we have the last one I think was ending at
68, I believe,
so this,
yeah.
you get a almost 10-point jump in pavement quality just by spending money differently.
Yeah, so that kind of shows the value of spending money on your good pavements to keep them in good condition. Okay, so the third, actually the next two scenarios we looked at, if the county were to increase that wheelage tax option they have. So currently residents are charged a $10 per vehicle tax. If the counties have the option to increase that all the way up to $20.
And that's new as this year.
I think you're right.
I think it recently changed from 10 to now you go upwards of 20.
Okay.
Or in between somewhere.
So this one, what if we were to kick it up to $15 a vehicle? So for the county, that would mean bringing in an additional $186,000. And we're spending the money kind of the same as we were in that last one, where we're still putting about a third to preventive maintenance. And we do get a slightly higher PQI, which makes sense because we're putting in a little bit more money. So with that one, we end at a 77, and again, that backlog is going down. And then the last one, we just increased it to $20 per vehicle, so that gives an additional $372,000. And then you can see again, the PQI is slightly better than what it was in the last one.
Okay. All right, so that's kind of what we're at right now. We just wanted to bring it to the board now and gather some feedback and kind of what your thoughts are on what we've been doing, and if there's any other strategies that you'd like to review. You can see the system, with the existing funding is still in pretty good shape, and so there's opportunities to establish some sort of benchmarks of what you want your system to be as far as PQI goes, or if there's an opportunity to, we want to pursue more funding or what have you. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So feedback.
Feedback?
Well, I guess this is a big project, I think, for the highway tracking committee to keep track of with our 5-year plan and stuff like that. I mean, we'll have to get this information if you're entering that information into this icon system, whatever it is, stuff we have to use. So to make a decision here today, say, well, we should go with this plan.
I think we'll continue to roll out the condition data and try to educate, through the highway committee and possibly back to the board again, exactly what what the trends are. It's the first time you guys have seen some of these charts. Eric and I are fairly new at seeing some of it too, but just to gather the condition data in Clay County and how it's trending and where we want to see it trend, and what are we willing to try to design and put together as a program. Like, where do we want that? It'd be nice if at the end of the day, I think it would be nice if we could set some parameters in Clay County. Like, we'd like to see a PQI of 80 or 75, or never to get below 60 or something along those range. And then what's it going to take to get there, and how much are we willing to find? I know the two of the strategies we put together were probably I wouldn't say that there's funding sources. There's not a lot of funding sources out there, additional sources for highway department. It's either probably levy dollars or something along the lines of these additional tax type things. So like I said, it was just an idea to show where some additional funds could come from and what they would do to the system. But obviously, we would continue to look for other sources that may or may be better.
But also, you took advantage of some, to bonding for some of these projects, and I think that really paid off for us in the end. I think to be able to tackle some of these really big projects like we did prior is probably something we're gonna end up having to do again. And I know you're really involved in seeing what permits the planning commission is doing in terms of some of these additional haul routes that, these gravel trucks are going to be hauling on, but specifically now that there's a pretty good amount of Becker County product that's coming through, is to kind of see where are they hauling and how they're affecting. They may not be highly traveled in terms of our residents traveling on them, but we're starting to see some kind of wear down. That CASA 10 project that you just did is a good example of that. So we'll just have to keep on top of it, and Frank alluded to the highway tracking committee. That's the most appropriate place.
I think, it's a great plan and all that, but all it takes is one project that's really to throw the whole thing off, it just, one road that comes and needs some repair, and
Yeah, you're
that
right.
wasn't on our list. And,
Yeah, if there's a new development that spurs up, all of a sudden, well, we do have to shift gears and
Yeah.
correct. It may pull dollars away from preventive maintenance that we'd like to do here that would increase our PQI, but that's kind of where that engineering judgment and.
Yeah, no, but I think it's a great plan, but to keep track of it, but still need money.
Yeah.
And one thing I probably should add too, one of the assumptions in the wheelage funding scenarios, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but right now every dollar of wheelage tax collected, a certain percentage goes to the small cities, right?
Yeah.
So the additional funding scenarios we ran here assume that same percentage.
Oh, it did, okay.
Even with the additional tax.
Oh, it did,
So-
all right.
So that scenario would show more money going to the small cities as well. But you could distribute it however you want, or like Dave said,
You
there's.
just kept the same percentages going.
Yeah, that's the assumption we made, just so you know.
The wheelage tax is not a popular thing.
Yeah.
Is any tax?
That one specifically is not popular.
And the nice thing about that one is I think for every dollar that the county get, taxes the resident on that wheelage tax, I think we get like 95 cents or something. I mean,
Right.
we literally get almost all of it, where some taxes, motor vehicle sales tax and those other things, it's almost the opposite.
Right.
Right? I mean, a lot of it goes to general fund and the counties get very, very little.
Okay. That good? All right. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, our next item is a request for approval of the tax forfeit property list. Let's see. Do I do this one first or the next one?
We'll do this one first.
Okay. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I'm back again. We have a list of the properties that are forfeited to the state for non-payment of taxes. I'm requesting that you approve the list for sale. We will have our sale on December 5th at 10 a.m. This list may not look the same at that time because prior owners still have the opportunity to repurchase the property up until the time of the sale. We have some of the assessed values are not on there yet. We are in the process of doing some evictions so we can get in and look at the property and assess them. And that's about it.
Okay.
You need approval
Of the list.
Yeah.
Made a motion.
A motion by Commissioner Gross. to
Second.
approve, and a second by Commissioner Wayland. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Your next item is a request for repurchase. Good morning, Jody.
Jody has 3 parcels on the list that you've just approved. She, in the letter she sent to you, she's requesting repurchase of the properties, and is saying that she will be happy to keep taxes approved in the future.
Right. And these are the Holly edition?
Yeah,
Correct.
3,800.
The Prairie Hills Estates.
Yep. And so we did see that there are some life circumstances that caused this, and you're prepared to pay the full amount today as well, okay? All right.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Whalen to approve,
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Haney. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Jody. You can settle
Thanks.
Nancy's
Yep.
office. All right, our next item is the committee reports. Commissioner Haney.
I had the Early Childhood Initiative luncheon last week and heard reports from various providers. and
Okay.
stakeholders.
Commissioner Gross.
Here's everybody's at the ribbon cutting on the 24th, also Jenny's not retirement party, going away party on the 24th. 25th, I went to the drug court. Another person graduated from that. It was good to see that going on. Heartland Trail meeting. Quite a bit, I mean, not much happening, but quite a bit is happening. First of all, Cindy Gray, who's a new CEO at Evan Koch, was at the meeting. Like the Frazee Detroit Lakes route, you know, right now there's no funds available for Heartland Trail, but if Frazee Detroit Lakes doesn't use all of their funds, we can transfer some of those funds to Heartland Trail. Then there was a discussion of whether it should be a regional route or trail or a state trail, you know. The deal is if you do a state trail, the state takes care of it, you know, whereas it's regional, we gotta hire someone to do it. So, of course, it would look better to be, be better to be a state trail, so. There's a lot of competition for trails for that legacy money, and they're even looking at partnership with Partnership for Health, these bicycle trails and stuff like that, to see whether there's money available in that program, you know. So those are the ones that, meetings that I went to. I have just one other item too that I was talking about. These nominations, I got some emails, which everybody did, nominations for annual awards and stuff like that. And I don't know if we ever put any of our projects in there, you know. I was just looking at the LEC and the Correctional Center, whether we should put some of those projects in for an award, or I don't know what the process is, you know, whether we should look into something like that and see whether we can get some of our projects so we can all go up on stage, you know. So,
Yeah, that
no.
might be nice to piggyback. I did talk to Rhonda Porter about our behavioral health unit,
Very good,
because this beyond the yellow line that Blue Earth County really had done is, yes, it kind of started the ball rolling, but I think in many ways our project, because we do have set professionals in there, is farther ahead than theirs. And so even at the AMC level, I think we should, contact them about possibly presenting on that. And so if that's something that we could piggyback with that might be a worthwhile.
Then I think the other thing I also had was that conference, which is coming up September 12th and 13th. I don't know whether, if we plan on going to that, or I think normally we do some participation
The
in that.
legislative conference. So if you're planning on going to that, make sure and talk to Colleen. I will be unable, I'll be at the state fair, so I'll be able to make.
When is that one?
12th, 13th, and 14th, and that's at Alexandria.
Okay.
At Arrowwood. Have
Okay.
we got registration for that yet? I don't.
I just saw it on the email.
We got an email, I think, from
Okay. So
from
make sure
AMC,
and
yeah.
let Colleen know if you plan on.
Okay, that's it.
All right,
Excuse me.
thank you, Commissioner Whalen.
Let's see, I had the construction updates yesterday on the jail and LAC and the detention center, and of course, we're finishing up things at the law enforcement center. The jail is still moving along, and detention, I think that's going overall pretty well there. Of course, it's a remodel, a remodeling project and addition project, and so they keep coming up with lots of surprises, but I think that was anticipated, so we'll have more on that in the future. And then, let's see, a couple of weeks ago, we had solid waste advisory and had updates from the staff. And let's see, there was coming up, there's an empty pesticide container collection project going on in Clay County for agricultural users, August 13th through the 17th. And let's see what else. Oh, Steve Moore from the city was there and gave an update on the single source collection for recyclables, and it still continues to be pretty amazing. I think he said they had been before the single source collecting about 44 tons of recyclables, and they've had as much as 244 tons in a month collected, so it's pretty significant. Yeah, amazing. So, that was it for me.
Thank you.
I guess, excuse me,
Commissioner Gross?
I just have one more item. I guess a few of us were at the retirement party for Brian yesterday, and just want to thank Colleen, whatever
Yes.
part you had in that, and all the rest of them that had a part of that.
Majority.
It was a very nice gathering, and thank you for doing that.
Does that conclude your reports?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I also want to reiterate thanks to those that planned that ribbon cutting ceremony. It was a warm day. It could have been a lot warmer, but we had a great turnout of community partners that helped us do that, and so those that helped plan that, thank you. I attended the Lakes and Prairies regular board meeting last month, or 2 weeks ago in Breckenridge. We had the audit presentation. The audit went very well. There were no findings, which is always a plus. Talked a little bit about a vehicle trade. They've got a vehicle lemon that they need to get rid of, and had the finances to trade that out, so we'll be doing that. We reviewed the new structure, organizational structure has been tweaked a little bit to have better flow. And then went to the MetroCog Executive Committee meeting. We have some new members on that board, so we had introductions. Cindy Gray, the new executive director, spoke. We kind of talked a little bit about some policy issues that we'd like in the manual to just kind of tweak in terms of the flow chart again, now that we have a larger office, and just talked about how could MetroCog better serve the area. I think it'll be a better fit. And then yesterday also the retirement party, thanks to Colleen and Georgia and the rest of you for organizing all of that. Steve, your committee?
Sure, just a couple different things. I tried to spend as much time with Administrator Berg here before he left. On the 30th, we participated in the new employee orientation. Commissioner our Madam Chair mentioned the yellow ribbon. I participated in that meeting with Rhonda Porter, Pat Boyer, Julie Savat, and Troy Amundson. And I do think that I concur with the fact that we do have a lot of good structure already in place that I think would serve us well as we move forward into our facility. Been working on the 31st. We also went through some of the punch list items with Chief Deputy Lansom and Tori Jacobson. They've been working hard to make sure that the building gets everything taken care of up to suit. And second, I dealt with some personnel issues with Darren. I also participated in a couple of our initial contacts with our Pathways Facilitator. That's the program for first-year county administrators that the board agreed that I could participate in, and that seems to be going to be a nice benefit. Again, Grant mentioned that we participated in the construction updates yesterday, and also over the first week, I've had a number of meetings both with public and county personnel on Lake 15 issues. So.
Anything else?
I forgot that I had the week before we were gone, so.
Oh, yeah.
I attended the FM Diversion Finance meeting the week before.
Okay. I do want to mention, I know that we have a PIC committee scheduled for the 21st, I believe. I don't know if it's pertinent. I think in terms of planning and zoning office, have we been able to fill with a temp administrative position? Okay. So I don't know if you feel like we should have a meeting in between there to kind of talk about what that transition will look like. I think the 21st is the next planning commission meeting, but it might be worthwhile to just have a meeting before then to make sure we've got anything ironed out that we need to. Okay, Steve, do you have anything?
No, thanks.
Anything else? If not, at 11 o'clock, there is the Night to Unite kickoff at the Dilworth Community Center, I believe. And Brian Berg will be speaking at that as well.
What time is that?
Is it 11?
11, it starts in 11:45.
That's at the Dill Community Center.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything else? If not, we're adjourned.